One. And we are recording with Mr. Michael Yon on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 11:12 a.m. Eastern Time. And I just had on Dale, Delta Force Dale. Now we're having Michael Yon on. We're talking about how it is the end of the fucking world. And because of that, I can finally now plug my sponsors that I have for the first time in 4 years. You guys go in the description, Evans Harvest, freeze dried food, 25-year shelf span, promo code Tommy, get some coffee. Promo code Tommy. You can get a home battery system. Promo code Tommy. We got a whole smorgasbord of advertisers, and you might be wondering where have these been? I haven't had any for 4 years, and now I've got several. So, and the Wellness Company. If you want some vitamins and supplements, everything's 10% off. Promo code Tommy. That's my that's my capitalist whore. We'll get that out of the way up front, guys. Go in the description. You can follow Mr. Yan on Twitter. He's a madman. He is constantly in jungles and mountaintops, fighting, doing God's work and documenting the very planned, very intentional infiltration, subversion, and deterioration of American society through overwhelming numbers of illegal immigrants, not desperate children and women, but military-aged men. So, Mr. Yan, can you please take it away?
Yes, sir. I just got in from the Darien Gap late yesterday, and that's why I'm all scruffy up and not wearing nice clothes because everything's muddy and gone off to the laundry.
Yeah,
And so so I'm confined to quarters until I can get some laundry. So and yeah, Darien Gap, as you know what the Darien Gap is, of course, and I think many of your listeners and what viewers actually know as well. But for those who don't, the Darien Gap is a stretch of jungle which is quite intense. Many people say it's the most dangerous jungle in the world, as if they've taken some global inventory of jungles. But let's just say if you're in a jungle, it's a jungle. Some are definitely more intense than others. I've been in many jungles,
yeah.
and this is one of the more intense ones for various reasons. One is, well, a lot of the Indians definitely kill people daily, and then the Colombian cartels on the Colombian side as well, constantly. And then there's a mountain well, anyway, the Darien Gap is this area of jungle between Colombia and Panama. Part of it's in Colombia, parts in Panama. I've been on the Colombia side and just briefly. I was only there for a few days. But on the Panama side, I've been there for months. I mean, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, because I come and go all the time, right? So since Biden was installed, I immediately went to the El Paso border. I mean, I was there at the inauguration, and which the place, that was a walled city, man. They put up fences around DC so fast it was insane, and it was horrific. Actually, it was pathetic. It was just a show, you know what I mean? It looks like they're trying to make America look like a police state, which it is because they're the ones making it, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was there at the inauguration, quote unquote, and then I flew straight to El Paso because I sensed I've reached a point in war correspondent work. I'm at a different level than most war correspondents. In other words, I've done so much war and so much conflict. I no longer am constantly looking at all the small details. In the past, in the first 10, 15 years of doing this, I would look. I'm always trying to suss things out from the details, right? You reach a certain point where you are above all that. It probably took me actually less than 10 years. And you get to the point where your opinions are actually much more valuable than the details. And most people say opinions are but actually they're not. Some actually, I'm always looking for people that are on the level that I'm at on this right now, which is the ability to look at a situation. You definitely need to go look at some details. That's sure. That's why I'm constantly in Morocco or in Lithuania or in Netherlands or down the Darien Gap on the Mexican border. I've been all the way across the Mexican border from Boca Chica, where SpaceX is, which is the Gulf side, all the way to San Diego. I know that border. I've seen it a lot, right? Now, there's some people down there that have seen it a lot more because they live on it, right? So they're in that world, and I find people like that, and I ask them to be sources, right? So I'm constantly, I've developed these networks all over the place. I do look at details, but you want to reach a point where your intuitive sense is much more powerful than spending time on details, right?
Mm.
So in other words, I'm always working to develop paradigms that are accurate, right? In other words, if your paradigm, how you view the world is accurate, I'm going somewhere specific with this. If the way that you view the world is accurate, then it should be much more predictive than the average expert. You know, the average expert, like in war, will be throwing up how many tanks the Ukrainians have versus MiGs and all this bullshit. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I skip all past that crap. You know what I mean? I mean, the war is so much more. Those little details are for the amateurs, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more going on, like cut off their pipeline,
Yeah.
like cut off their funding, like there's all kinds of other things, right? That are not related to metal, right? And so, and likewise, and so if your paradigm is accurate, it should be very predictive. And every time that it's really terribly off, you should be re-examining your paradigm. And if you feel the emotion of surprise, like, wow, I didn't expect those animals to have sex in this in it. A lot of people were saying, I did. People are asking me immediately, like, did you see that coming? Oh yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I expect it. It's part of the paradigm. That's what these animals do, right?
Mm.
If you know how an alligator behaves or whatever, I don't want to compare an alligator to a roach, but I grew up in Florida. I grew up with both, right? And I grew up smashing roaches and catching alligators, right? So I mean, with my hands, but the bottom line is if you feel the emotion of surprise, like, wow, I didn't expect that, or wow, they're starting to do stuff to the statues, or they're going after Arlington stuff. I've been publishing for several years. They're going to go after national cemeteries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in my paradigm, that's what they'll do. So when Biden was installed, I was there. I was there January 6th as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I expected something might happen. I didn't know who would do what, but anyway. But after the inauguration, I flew down to El Paso because I expected, in my paradigm, the border would open, right? And in my paradigm, they would start tearing down the wall at some point, right? So I started publishing that, saying it on interviews like War Room or whatever. And I started saying, I think they're going to tear down the wall. Now, some people say, where's your evidence? I'm like, my evidence is a lot of life experience all over the world, watching this stuff, watching similar, running around China for a year, running around Asia in general for 18 years, running around a lot of hot spots and cold spots and in between spots. I have developed an intuitive sense that I trust much more than any expert that I see, because I do this more than anybody I know, right? So there's only a few people I'll actually listen to very closely on the intuitive level, right? Now, on the details, there's a lot of people that will give you accurate information. So what I'm getting to is I flew from the inauguration to El Paso because I expect, and immediately within 24 hours, they were bum rushing the border. So that was back on the day after the inauguration, right? Then I also expected Darien Gap would start being opened up more. There was already a trickle coming through. So I went down there with Masako Ganaha and Chuck Colton. We flew from El Paso, we flew to Colombia, right? And then we went into the Darien Gap on the Colombian side, not very far in, just like an hour, right? But the bottom line was I expected the Darien Gap to open, and I kept saying it. And by the way, if you're not willing to say what your predictions are, then what use are they, right? So I was like, so I started spending. So then I flew back over to the Panamanian side, where I'm at now. Actually, that's the canal out the window, by the way.
Oh, really?
I just got in from the Darien Gap. You might actually see a ship go by while we're talking, because there's the Miraflores locks right there. But anyway. See if I see a ship out there. That's why I got my trusty stabilized binoculars. The never go anywhere without good binoculars. Anyway, so I expected that the Darien Gap would be opened, right? And so that it would open more. It was already open, but that it would really open, right? And so I started spending a lot of time down there developing networks with the Kuna Indians and the Imbara and the Wunan Indians, and with the Cinefront, with the Panamanian government, local people. And so I've been all over that gap. I've been around that gap more than anybody I know that doesn't live there or is not like a 20-year missionary or something. There's a lot of missionaries down there that know a lot. Those missionaries are important. Many years ago, a top CIA guy told me, we were at his house, and he said, you know what? Always go to the real CIA, Christians in Action.
Yeah,
And I
but
was like,
really, I mean, you talk
yeah,
about
they know
intel on the
everything, man.
ground. Yeah.
They know everything. And so, and they always know everything because they're out there, and sometimes they're multiple generations. They speak the languages, they grow up with the children. So anyway, I was easily got dialed in down there, and because I do this all over the world, and so for me, it's just coming into a different helicopter cockpit, right?
Mm.
And so I come in there, and I start really seeing it, and I'm like, yeah, they're going to build this up. This is going to be a main corridor to the United States. Now, so if you can get your feet anywhere into South America, skipping past all the details, like Colombia just okayed 41 countries for visa waiver so they can travel, fly to Bogota or anywhere in Colombia and go straight to Darien Gap. They just did that like 2 weeks ago or so, right? But anyway, let's skip past all those details because I could literally go for a day without stopping on these details. And so skipping past all that, this is a major corridor, right? Literally in August, about 82,000 people were documented by the Panamanian government of coming through the Darien Gap. 82,000 in 1 month. That number is clearly increasing. It's going to increase by multiples. I would say at least 3 times that. And with some time, I would say before. Timing is where I can get things wrong. The paradigm can be quite accurate, like this is going to grow. I can see it because I see all the conditions, and it's all about conditions. And I see the infrastructure being built up. So there's the intent, right? And that's okay. How big is this infrastructure being built? Okay, that's enough for 3 to 4 times more people than there are now, and da 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 da. Actually, all the headquarters are like 4 minutes walk from me right now for
Okay.
IOM, UN. They're staying in this hotel that I'm at, right?
All
So
right.
some of them are. So I'm always at ground zero. Anywhere you see me is ground zero, or I'm in transition between ground zeros, right? And so um, the bottom line is this is being. I know the intent. The intent is to destroy the United States, replace us. They've stated their intent crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
Replace, first of all, kill off a critical mass of the white people because we're
Mm-hmm.
the only thing standing in between CCP and the globalists and the other globalists that work together and killing the black people because they want to kill the black people next. They got no use for them. Chinese, man, I spent a year running around China. You never seen racism until you go to China.
Oh, it's
I mean,
fucking insane.
they make Nazis look like freaking, like
Yeah.
nice neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why the Hong Kongers call them Chai Nazis, right?
Yeah.
And so, so anyway, so once if they can manage to kill off a critical mass of us through the death jabs and through all sorts of other things, then they'll run the table. I mean, everybody thinks they're going to defend your land with an AR-15. Good luck to you, and I wish you the best. But that's not what's going to happen. You're being overrun at the border right now. That's a kill shot. I don't care if you got 500,000 rounds of ammunition and a whole armory and your whole neighborhood's all gunned up. Guess what? They're going to get you, right? They're going to get you, right? You have to stop the border now. And this government that's doing it. But let's go back to paradigm. I could see that this route, the Canadian route, all these others are opening up, right? And it's also Europe. So I spend a lot of time running around Europe as well, 6 years. And sometimes I fly from this airport here right to Amsterdam, right? To look at Netherlands because that's another vital terrain. This right here behind me, I'm sitting on one of the most vital terrains in all of planet Earth. This is it. Panama Canal and Panama Corridor from South America. This is unbelievably important terrain for many reasons, right? And the United States is just like washing our hands of it. And
Mm.
CCP is moving in. You can see the glacial movement, right?
Mm.
And now it's picking up. But anyway, now let's go over to food supply. If you have pandemic, famine, or war, that creates or grave differences and or let's say large differences in economics. You'll have HOP, human osmotic pressure, right? The push and the pull of migration. So food supplies clearly will be, we're going to go into global famines. If my paradigm is accurate, and it's proving to be so accurate that I should freaking publish what I'm thinking so that you can use it. But the bottom line is it's highly accurate. And look at crazy man Alex Jones. That man is proving to be very accurate. He's not crazy after all, right?
No,
But he just comes off that way. But when
he's a
you meet him,
showman.
he's a showman. But
Yeah.
the man is smart, and it's funny. He tells you what he does. He reads their stuff, right?
Yeah.
He
No,
reads their
I
stuff,
got to meet
you
him.
know?
Yeah, no, he's got
Yeah.
a
I
fucking
mean,
stack of papers.
he's like my
I got
secret
the,
is I read what they publish.
I got the
That's what I do.
documents. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But he was way ahead. He was way ahead of me on this because I was off in wars doing, combat and other
Mhm.
bullshit. I mean,
Yeah.
that's low level. I did a lot of that. I did a tremendous amount of combat, but that was more than any living American war correspondent. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But that's a different level of war. That's the lower level, right?
Yeah.
That's not the high. The higher level, the highest level of warfare is information warfare. That's what we're
Mhm.
doing right now. You and I are literally fighting a battle. We're in combat right now, right? On these mics. This is our talking guns, right? And so, quite literally, I have to start using that term because we're on talking gun. You know what talking guns are?
No.
Talking gun. When you got machine guns, all the infantrymen are out there going, "Yeah, of course, talking guns." And talking guns. Let's say you got 2 or more machine guns, and so if you got a machine gun, you'll usually fire in 3 to 5 round bursts, right?
Yeah.
Right. But you want those. If you have more machine guns, like Marines practice this a lot. Our good Army infantry practice it a lot. SF guys, if you got larger type teams doing stuff, they'll practice talking guns. Talking guns is, let's say you got a gun and I got a gun. We're doing talking guns right now. It's like you go back and forth. So if you got 3 guns, it takes more practice. If you got 4, it's getting more complicated. But anyway, that way it's everything is you always want that lead and noise going down range to keep their heads down so you guys can either get away or get around them and get up on them and smoke
Die,
them, right?
motherfucker, die, motherfucker.
Yeah, depending on how your commander feels your advantage or disadvantages are, or what your mission is, you may be using those talking guns to keep their heads down so your other guys can get up, flank them, and smoke them or whatever. Or you might be using that so that your guys can get away because we're outnumbered 10-1 and this is not our day. And so it's their day unless you got. And so that's talking guns. That's basically what we're doing now, but we're doing it with microphones on the information war, right? But the bottom line is POP, human osmotic pressure, that push and the pull of migration, or in this case, it's a weaponized migration. It's an invasion, right? There's no migration or undocumented migrants. I'm discounting anybody that keeps calling them undocumented migrants. I'm like, okay, you're a clown. We don't have time for clowns. Words are the atomic structures of information war, right? If you choose the wrong word, like experimental vaccine, let's break that down for a minute. It's not a vaccine, period. End of discussion, right?
Gene therapy.
Nope. Okay, hold on. Where's the evidence that it's therapy? There is 0 evidence that it's therapy. That's where that was their
gene punishment.
Let's just call it the glob. The glob. I mean, we don't know what it is. So whenever people started rightfully going, well, that's not a vaccine, and people go, well, the information warriors on the enemy side are like, well, okay, fallback position. It's a gene therapy, right? It's a therapy because therapies are good too. It's not a therapy. It's clearly a weapon. It's obviously a weapon. It's so obviously a weapon that it's embarrassing to have to say that the Panama Canal has water in it. You know that canal has water in it? The death jab is a clear weapon, right? It's super obvious. And so and it's not experimental. They always say experimental vaccine. Okay, stop. It's not a vaccine. It's a clear weapon. Experimental. Where's the evidence that it's experimental? I see 0. I see absolutely 0. I see 0 evidence whatsoever that it's experimental. They got you on both atomic structures. Their HTO is more like, some poison. It's not hydrogen. It's not oxygen. They use the 2. Hey, I'm going to make you some water. I need some H2O to make you some water. And but actually, we're going to use like lithium and something else. So, but this was water. It's an experimental water. It's like it's not water, right? Like it doesn't have hydrogen or oxygen. So that's what I'm getting to. We got to be very careful with these atomic structures of information war. These are not illegal migrants, right? They are not undocumented migrants. This is an invasion. This is a war, period. It's a hybrid war. The goal is crystal clear. The enemy says it. Alex Jones reads it. So he's been saying it like a madman for 20 years or more, and well, turns out Madman was right. He was just, because when Cassandra's right, way in advance of everybody else, people make him feel crazy. You know what I mean? Because you're like talking to the wind. But in any case, this is an invasion. and this is a main route. The Pan American Highway crosses the Panama Canal just down here a couple miles or so. You can look at it on Google Earth and you can see there's Miraflores Locks out my window. You can look at Miraflores Locks and you can see how far the Panama Canal, the Pan American Highway, which is Highway 1, which goes up to the United States. That's the highway that the aliens come up. The invaders come up, right? So two arteries right there. You got Highway 1 that they cross going through the Darien Gap over this incredibly vital canal that our globalist Jimmy Carter gave away, it's funny. When I was young, I thought Jimmy Carter was a nice guy, but he was inept. He was stupid. He was whatever. As I learned more about information war and the globalist, I realized that guy was straight up evil. I mean, he gave away this canal. That means Panama is going to end up losing it. And this is all, and it's clearly part of a very long-term strategy. Mm-hmm. It's not like none of us alive, this stuff launched before our grandparents were born, mm-hmm. right? So when you go to the Darien Gap, when you're going down Highway 1 to Darien, you go through all these teak forests, right? Not forests, but they're plantations, right? And, obviously you plant the teak trees and it takes many years to have a teak tree. That's the same thing with these, right? With these information campaigns. Sometimes they're intergenerational. Now, the people doing the information campaigns get incremental benefits from them. They get people to whatever, they'll make money off of it, that mm-hmm. sort of thing. But the end state is control of the entire planet, right? And so, and you've got the CCP coalesced there with WEF, World Economic Forum, which is an amalgam of things. When you hear Alex Jones talk about that, I asked him about it last time I was talking with him. I asked Alex, I was on the show with him, actually. I said, who do you think is dominant in the relationship between World Economic Forum and Chinese Communist Party? Because I think it's Chinese Communist Party is the dominant partner. And that's what he said. He went off on that, Alex. And mm-hmm. and so he's it's funny. Some people will immediately discount anything you say if you even mention the name Alex Jones and anything else other than the most derogatory way, mm-hmm. right? And that's just showing that they don't know anything about what's going on, actually. Or they'll go, what about the school shooting that he said such and such about or whatever? You look at the details, it's actually an information campaign against him. He did say some things, blah, blah, blah. But the end of the story, for instance, watch, I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to tell you what went through a lot of people's minds. CNN absolutely sucks. CNN is the worst thing. It's a poison in the universe. Immediately, a lot of people thought Fox. They thought Fox, right? Because they look at Fox as, especially left-wingers will say, well, you must watch Fox. I'm like, no, actually, because Fox sucks equally, right? Yes. And they are part of the same ecosystem. They are not separate, right? Yeah. They are the same thing. And I mean that fully, right? They are not separate. This is kayfabe, right? It's absolute kayfabe, which is like professional wrestling, right? And so in these information campaigns, often, I've written 3 books on information war, by the way. Unfortunately, they're all in Japanese. They're not in English. So unless you read Japanese, it doesn't matter to talk about it. Because I've been trying to wake up the Japanese for a long time. Because Japan is a very strategic partner for the United States. And Japan is being targeted for termination, let's put it that way. I mean, I've spent a lot of time running around China, looking at their museums, looking at their information campaign. But the bottom line is in information campaigns, often the message, the answer, or let's say the antidote to some poison that somebody throws up and says, hey, CNN sucks. The antidote to that to a left winger is, well, you must love Fox. Fox is that's perfect. That's a supplied answer. They don't realize they've been injected with that. That answer was injected into them. If I say Coke is the best drink in the world, many people say Pepsi. If I say Ford is a terrible vehicle, some people say Chevy, right? They make these fights so that if you're focused on Ford and Chevy, you're going to get one of them because you're not even thinking about all the rest, no. Toyota and Mercedes and all that. You're like, Ford and Chevy. My choices are Ford and Chevy. My choices are Johnson & Johnson or Moderna or AstraZeneca. So people start arguing about which poison do you want? Well, I want this one because it's not a gene therapy. And it's It's like, dude, do you realize you're about to get lit up with talking guns and they're going to be death globules, right? You are pulled into an information campaign that is quite intense, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, if I say these things, if you feel a reflexive answer come up inside of you, there's a high chance that was implanted into you, right?
Mm.
And it goes for you and me as well. Every time I meet English and Germans, for instance, ich spreche Deutsch, by the way, I speak German. I speak German fluently, right? I lived in Germany for 4 years. I went to DLI for it, which is the defense languages. You know what I mean? So I've run around Germany quite a lot. I'm quite familiar with Germans and English, not just British, but English, right? English specifically, right? Interestingly, whenever I meet English and Germans, I start, if I think I'm going to talk with them for more than an hour, I'll be like, "Can I borrow your pen?" "Oh, thanks. Let me take a piece of paper." Hold on, just take a note and put it in my pocket. And then we start talking, and then within about 30 minutes, those English or those Germans, Japanese and others never do this. Only English and Germans. They'll bring up. They want to know where you stand on guns, right? I mean, they're gonna drift over into that. I've been through this stuff so many times. It's like they're gonna, if it's a new random German, sooner, usually within about 30 minutes, they want to know who they're talking with, and their litmus test, is it blue or is it red? They're going to be like, "What do you think about all these guns?" And I'm going to be like, "Oh, you're German. You were going to mention guns within the first 30 minutes." They're like, "Whoa, how'd you know that?" And I'm like, "Because I study information war," and that was injected into your head. When you meet an American, you have to bring that up. And let me tell you what, the reason we have guns is not for hunting. It's not for anything. It's to kill Germans and English, right? And you guys are the only ones, you English guys are still running around to America going, "Why do you got guns? Why do you got guns?" Because I had 2 grandfathers fought in the Revolutionary War, and I hope they shot your grandfather right in the chest with a ball. You know what I'm saying? That's why we got guns, because I'm not a slave and you are, right?
Yeah.
You talk like a slave, you act like a slave. The things, I love you English people, you're so polite. And you know what? You talk like slaves, right? I mean, I was in combat with them quite a lot, actually, in Iraq and Afghanistan. I love going out with the British Army, very professional. But like a lot of Americans, this information war they've been infected with, Americans will often ask, "Are we allowed to? Are we allowed to?" If I bring up, what do you mean, are we allowed to? We asking daddy government, are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to do that? And I mean, that's a slave mentality that's been injected and you don't even notice it. Like, it'll pop out of you sometimes and me, and like, "Am I allowed to do this?" I'm like, I just regurgitated a slave thought.
Yeah.
A slave thought just came out of me, right?
Yeah.
And I want to take every one of those slave thoughts, and I want to break their little necks and throw them out in that water, right? You know what I mean? Because find them and destroy them, right? Because we've been infected with this stuff. Find it and scrub it out, right? But the bottom line is, Germans think like, I lived there for 4 years, man, and it's that slave mentality. "Oh, we're so free." Are you free? No, you're not. You are such the biggest rule followers in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, following rules can be very important. That's how we can cooperate and be on time and do all these things, and don't go 300 miles an hour down the Autobahn. Oh, actually, you do. And you know what I mean? And yeah, they're always like, global warming. I'm like, how fast do you go on the Autobahn? Anyways,
it's
so
fucking Autobahn.
But all these information campaigns are quite intense, and we're born into them, right? We're born into information campaigns that are as sophisticated in construction as, like, the details that went into building, Notre Dame.
Stealth bomber. Yeah.
Oh, you go, yeah. I mean, you go into Notre Dame. Well, the savages seem to have burned it. You go into an important library. You go into some of these old churches. They're like, I don't know, 400 years old or more in different places. And like, the people that built this were very sophisticated people. I mean, they didn't have a bunch of machines and lasers and stuff. This is like perfection. You know what I mean? I mean, this is unbelievable. And imagine information campaigns that are equally as sophisticated. You can't see it. You'll never see it. It's unless you start really studying these things, and then you're like, if this is actually fake, then there'll be evidence in places, and I should be able to find it. And you can, right? But it's like I studied cults. When I was in special forces, some of the old timers there, which would be like 40 years old, they seemed old, and they would be like, you need to study world religions and all this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a Green Beret, I want to study, like explosives and, how to, raise up an army and go kill Russians or something, right?
Yeah.
And, but they were right. And it got me going down this research trail that I still follow. I learned so much in my time in SF. I was always the youngest soldier on my two teams. And so for me, I was like, I'm in the university here. And
Yeah.
I'm not teaching anybody anything, but
Yeah.
I'm a vacuum. And so, and so I started
Religions,
studying
cults.
cult. Oh yeah, I started. Yeah, I told you this before. And I infiltrated a cult, for instance, that I detected in India, and they had set up shop in various parts of the United States. So I infiltrated one in Sonoma, California, right? But anyway, but the bottom line is I learned a lot about cults. It's very important to study cults. Studying cults is like it's an investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like studying mathematics. Every hour and every day and month you study mathematics is an investment. It will, even if you're not planning on making a lot of money or anything like that, numeracy, let's say like literacy, is very, very important to have at least some basic literacy and numeracy, right? And that's one of the ways you can sucker all these people into taking all their money. It's like they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand anything about math. Oh, we can just take all the world. We got plenty of space. Peter Zayon, that guy's a complete clown, man. He's like, we have plenty of space and all this. I'm like, are you out of your mind? He's like, we got all the food. We got all this. The guy's a clown. Anyway, but of course he took like 5 jabs. He's on one of his podcasts, coughing, sneezing. He's like, while he's talking about the jabs he took, the death jabs. It's like, hello, McFly. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but it's that. What I was getting to is you'll never see the cult that you're in. You will never see it. And these political parties in the United States, and it's not just the United States, it's around the world. You have these political parties, and they sort of make cults, right? They create a cult. Like there's always a lot of, a core that'll be sort of cult like. No matter what is said or done, they will not examine any objective evidence, right? Clearly, Biden is what's called a dog king, an information war. That's an old term that's not been used for centuries, other than my team and I. We use it all the time. A dog king, you and I talked about it before, I think a few months ago, didn't we?
No, no, explain it.
A dog king. Dog king is very. Have you ever heard of this term, dog king?
No.
A dog king is a very interesting term. It comes from fighting between Swedish and Norwegians way, way back when, right? Centuries ago. So if you vanquish a king, an enemy king, or kill him or something, then you make a dog into a king, right? And you give it a throne and a crown and a necklace.
Puppet government. All right, yeah.
Not really a puppet government. It is, but it's also literally a dog. It is a woof woof dog, right?
Oh.
And so the woof woof dog has a crown, and it has a necklace, and it has an interpreter, and the dog literally has a throne and servants and all this stuff. And usually only cats have servants, but so then you're like, well, your king abandoned you or is dead or whatever, and this is your new king. Everybody's like, well, it's a dog, and they're like, yeah, but that in our world, the king is the king is the king. It doesn't matter who the king is. You listen to the king, and that is your king. And so, and after this king will come another king. You'll listen to that king. So what this does is some people are like, but that's a dog. And others are like, okay, the dog's my king. They're the perfect death guard for death camp people in a modern world, right? Yeah, there's my dog king. He said to put all the white people in the ovens. So we'll do it, Yeah. They never see the cult that they're in. They're incredibly dangerous. So so you've got some though that'll go, that's just a dog. They're playing a game on my head. So it demoralizes you, right? So you got some people taking orders from a dog, through his interpreter, and then there's your puppet, and the others are demoralized. Biden, right? So Biden is obviously a meat puppet. He's obviously a dog king, right? So he's obviously not the president. He's a dog king, right? And he demoralizes all the rest, like all the military leadership who are like, well, they said we should have trannies inside of Ranger Regiment. And, I know you can't go on this mission because it's time for therapy, right? It's like, and all these generals who go along with it, it demoralizes them. And actually you've selected for people that would actually do that. I mean, the real studs have gotten out, or they've been weeded out. They may have wanted to stay in, but they will be weeded out, right? And so as these things happen, and our military is just corroded and dissolved actually, and they still got all the guns, and guess who's going to get those guns? The people who are invading, right? And so they'll have our NSA. They'll have our, who's going to get it will be the globalist and CCP. The globalists and CCP will capture our CIA and all those databases and the NSA, all that stuff, all of our atomic weapons, all of our jets. If we lose, they will have our military, and they already have essential critical mass to control it, right? They've got our military running off downrange somewhere on some stupid non sequitur thing, using all of our ammunition in a lost cause in Ukraine. And this canal is being taken. This is an artery for the United States. Panama is 2 arteries. It's very important. Meanwhile, we see Europe being taken, like tri-state city being created between Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, which I've talked about in great detail with Jordan Peterson a couple times on his shows. And I've talked about this many times, to millions of people. Some people now see it, that what's happening, but others will not. They won't see that these information campaigns, the highest form of warfare, is putting everybody in a torpor, and they're being invaded, and they're going to be killed. They're going to be replaced. And if we don't stop this invasion, it's going to be over. By the time people actually go to guns and start defending themselves, you'll be overwhelmed, because all you have to do is put rifles in these people's hands, give them 1 week of training. 1 week of training. That's all you need. Even a few days of training, and they will be, a few days of training with a gun that you could put in these people's hands, and suddenly they know how to operate it. It doesn't matter if they're a super sniper dude or Delta guy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're going to be. They got numbers. They're going to be busting down Granny's door and taking her house. Right. That's what's going to really happen.
Right.
That's what Stalin did.
Well, Stalin. Quantity is a quality all in its own.
Quantity is a weapon system, right? And they've got it. They're overwhelming us. The vast majority of people coming through are military age males, period. And many of them, like I was just watching, I just got in from the Darien Gap. I saw tons of Chinese. Again, those numbers are increasing. The vast majority are military age males, and a lot of them look straight up military, right? And Indians, a lot of Indians coming, Afghans by the thousands, Venezuelans, of course. Right now the predominant number of people coming through are Venezuelans. Remember, about 82,000 came through August. I'm working on getting the latest update numbers now, but the numbers will clearly be increasing now as the dry season comes. We've actually got lucky and got a bunch of rain in the last couple of weeks, which is bizarre. But that's good because it's filled up. We got some canal water problems. But the bottom line is the vast majority of people coming through are military age males. And some look clearly military. I mean, like coming through what looks like units. And this is from various countries like Venezuela. And keep in mind, Venezuela is chock full of Hezbollah. There's a lot of Hezbollah in Venezuela. A lot of people don't get that. A lot of people don't realize there's all these other meta structures. I call them meta structures. Meta structures are religious or cultural, or sometimes often both. Structures, they're like global spider webs of different cultures. Like there's Chinese all over the world, right? Because they've gone out to Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. They got all these countries I go to, right? I've been to almost 100 countries now. I spent most of my life overseas. By far, the majority of my life has been downrange, right? So I see Chinatowns all over the world. There's also Germans. You'll see, I call them Anthro-Insula, human islands, right? You'll see I was just up with Mennonites up in Belize. There's a lot of Mennonites in Belize, and they produce a lot of Belize's food, right? And in fact, when the Belize government tried to force the Mennonites to take the death jab, I was just out with the Mennonites a couple months ago up in Belize. When the Belize government, which Belize is that little country in Central America that borders Mexico and Guatemala, right? So when the Belize government tried to force the Mennonites to death jabs, they're like, nope, we're pushing out. We're going to go to Suriname and we're going to go to Peru, right? So they sent out feelers to do that. So I went and talked with them. I was like, what's going on? They produce a lot of the food from Belize. But when Belize realized, hey, these Mennonites who don't cause any problems, but they grew a lot of good food, and then very important for our country, and they're punching out. They're breaking camp, right? And they got when I say camp, you should see their camps, man. They're like massive, big, far as the eye can see type stuff, right? And because it's all these different Mennonites, they got their. What I'm getting to is this is an Anthro Insula, it's a human island. Those Mennonites had come in through Canada and Mexico, and now they're in Belize, been there many years. But there's a Mennonite meta structure in Amish as well. Or like I found Mennonites in Guatemala as an example. There weren't very many in El Salvador. I couldn't find them. I heard there were some, but I didn't see them. I didn't put a lot of effort into it. But I wanted to tap into their meta structure. Unfortunately, with Mennonites, you can't develop overseas contacts very well because they're not on the internet. And if the electricity goes out, they're going to be like, "Hey, the city's dark," you know.
Yeah.
Actually, they speak Low German. I speak High German, so they can understand everything I say, and I can only understand about a third of what they say.
All right.
But I can understand them, but I just have to listen slowly. But actually, some of them, a few spoke English, and they all spoke well, depending where they. Anyway, but the bottom line is these are made of structures. So you got these Chinese all over the world. You've got Mennonites, Amish, Germans. You got Filipinos. You can find it everywhere, man. You can find Jewish. For instance, there's a Jewish meta structure here. I just had a meeting with one last week. 3 of his family members were killed by Hezbollah in 1994 here in Panama in an airline bombing. It blew. There was an airplane flying from Cologne to Panama City, landing near me, and here in 1994, a bombing blew up that airplane and killed 3 of his relatives. Killed 22 in total or something like that. And then the day before or the day after, there was a bombing in Argentina, killed about 85-ish in a Jewish center, right? What I'm getting to is there is a Islamic infrastructure that's all a meta structure that's here. There's a Jewish meta structure that's here. And the meta structure in South America for Islamic is quite large. And it's entrenched for like a lot, believe it or not, there is a lot of the Hezbollah, they live in Venezuela, right? And Venezuela is at war with the United States, and the United States is at war with Venezuela, right? So and rewind what I just said earlier, the predominant numbers of people coming through are Venezuelans. The Hezbollah who live in Venezuela, the guy who did the bombing, who killed this Jewish guys here, killed his family members, that Hezbollah guy owns a bar in Venezuela. He owns a bar down there. The Hezbollah guy that masterminded the bombing, he's alive right now, right? I mean, they're active down there, right? And so the bottom line is, yeah, he owns a bar. He can't make up that stuff. So he's probably working something because often spy types will open bars because that makes it's like a beehive, right? And so you'll see a lot of former spy guys will open bars, you know what I mean? Because they're just making a beehive. And so but the bottom line is Hezbollah's here. They're in this country, Hamas, many others. And of course you've got the Jewish meta structure, you got their meta structure. Actually, believe it or not, in the Middle East, there's a lot of people that speak Spanish, believe it or not, who are Arabs, because they came to South America like over 100 years ago, many generations ago, 4 or 5 generations ago, even longer in some cases, and they bounced back, right? So there's some bounce back and forth. These are meta structures that people don't realize exist. So a lot of, I spend most of my time downrange. So the world looks very different to me. I'm seeing all these capillary systems of all this, like, okay, I'm out with the Jewish guys here, and I'm out with the Mennonites, and I'm out with all these different groups of Germans or whatever. And and they all communicate with Sikh people. Sikhs have a really strong meta structure. Like you see the Sikhs working at Amazon, a lot of their drivers and stuff, their truck drivers. If you tell one Sikh something, you basically told them all, right? And Christians in Action, of course, missionaries are all over the world. And then there's other groups as well. For instance, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishnas have a meta structure all over the world. And I've talked with them quite a lot in India and the United States and whatnot. Like if I want to know what's going on in Ukraine or New Zealand, I know people I can contact in the Hare Krishna community. What I'm getting to is this is the way the world really is. It's not like all the Muslims are over in Muslim land and all the Jews are in Jew land and all the Christians are in Christian land. You know what I mean? That's not how this works. We got meta structures all over the place. I mean, we're surrounded by them, right? Indians, but Indians have their substructures. It's not like they're all okay. We're all Indians. That's not the way it goes. You got the Gujaratis, for instance, that run many of the hotels in the United States. If you go to a hotel and you walk in the hotel and you smell, what's that smell? It might be incense the Indians are burning, right? Yeah, I spent a year running around India, so I can smell it. It's an Indian owner. And if you ask, hey, who owns this hotel in the United States? If it's an Indian owned hotel, the name is probably Patel, right? Because the Patel in Gujarati language means innkeeper, right? Like hotelier, right? And so it's like Schumacher or something, right? Or blacksmith, or Johnny Black, the blacksmith kid. So with them, Patel means innkeeper in Gujarati language. A huge amount of hotels and motels around the United States are owned by Patel. So they've got their own meta structure, right? And it's quite intense because they've got buying power in the hotels, they got information power, they got all, they're buying up hotels everywhere. All these meta structures are all over whether it's Somalis. If you talk with Nigerians, it's not like Nigerians go and find other Nigerians. They don't care about other Nigerians. They care about people in their tribe. It's the same with Kurds. You go with Kurds, like I spent a lot of time with Kurds in various places in northern Iraq, of course, Kurdistan, or in actually Thailand, believe it or not. They've got their own meta structures as well. Interestingly about Kurds are at the tribal level. Kurds don't go find other Kurds. They find people in their tribe, right? And so, for instance, in Japan, there's an increasing number of Kurds over there. Misako Ganaha, the famous Japanese journalist, told me, she said, wow, the Kurds, I think they got drunk or something. Kurds, man, they love to go to drinking. They go to the bottle and they go to the gun and the knife and they go to fighting, right? As much as I love Kurds, man, you throw some whiskey in them and it's game on, right? And they're famous. You'll hear Kurds talking about it too. If you got Kurdish friends, ask them. They're like, oh yeah, Kurds start drinking. We start fighting each other. And so it's not they just go fight Arabs or Turks or something. It's like they're like guns up on each other. So these Kurds over in Japan were doing their thing, got into a big fight. One of them ends in the hospital. So his family goes to the hospital, or his people. And then the other family shows up at the Japanese hospital and they start fighting in the hospital, right? So, I mean, and the Japanese are like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, why is it? And I'm like, because always go back to this. One thing I've learned, not all fish mix in the same aquarium, right? You have the fish chart, when you get in the aquarium, like, should I get this sort of fish with that one? Nope. You get some Kurds mixed up with some Turks. We're going to get some action, some Turks with some Armenians, action. It's like, we get these Arabs with those Arabs, action, right? Sunni, Shia, action. On the fish chart, or Catholics, Protestants. Man, I went up to Belfast last year in Northern Ireland. Good grief, man. There's a wall over 20 miles long. It's more intense than the Trump wall for those who've been to it. I've been up and down that Trump wall. That's a pretty serious wall. Except that, according to my paradigm, they would start taking it down, and they are, welding gates open or cutting down parts of it. I said that, 3 years ago, as soon as Biden was installed. But up in Belfast, Northern Ireland, they got over 20 miles of wall that's even more serious than the Trump wall. I mean, you got to be like a professional baseball player to hurl a baseball over that thing. But some people obviously do, because on the other side of the wall, on the Protestant side, you can see that they've actually got fences guarding their roofs from anything that does make it over the wall, right?
Holy
and
shit.
and they close those gates at night. So I'm like, okay, so let's get this down. So the Protestants and the Catholics are still blood enemies in Ireland, despite the temporary ceasefire. Oh, we're friends now. But you can see whenever I bring it up to them when I'm in Ireland, you can see that they're ready to go guns up again. They still got the mural wars going on, if you know what I'm talking about, the paintings and everywhere you look, his eyes are following you type stuff, with the gun and stuff. I mean, it's like they still have these information wars going. Always watch your enemy's information wars. I say again, always watch your enemy's information wars. That's your big tell. That's why Alex Jones has been so accurate. He watches their information war. Info wars, right? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, hello, he was onto this since he was a child, apparently. I mean, he's like a child prodigy on this stuff,
Yeah.
And I came to it as an adult. Alex Jones speaks it fluently. You know what I mean? I speak it with an accent, but yeah. And but the bottom line is they still got an information war between Protestants and Catholics. So imagine this. So you've got Protestants and Catholics, white guy, Irish, both still ready to go guns up while you're pulling in Nigerians, Somalis, Afghans, Pakistanis. They're already, killing people on the streets. The migrants, the invaders are killing people on the streets. I was out there last year with Mary Lou McDonald. She's the leader of Sinn Féin, right? And so she's very influential, right? She's a Marxist. Man, she's got an IQ of about 90. I kept bringing up to her, Mary Lou, she's talking, Mary Lou, we're in a bar. I don't drink, but, it's Ireland. So we end up in this bar. And so, and I wanted to talk with her about food issues and the migration, the invasion. If you say invasion to her head, like her brains will explode all over the wall around us, right? It's like, I went to one of her speeches and all she wanted to talk about, since it was in, broken English, it was in Irish. It was all about diversity, equity, and inclusion and all this. We're meeting our goals. And I'm like, what about the food supply? When I brought that up to her in that bar, she's like, well, we have enough food for 25 million people. That's what the Irish always say. That's a supplied answer. So if you have an authentic Irish person, if you know any, and maybe you are one,
Thomas
but I mean,
Patrick Carrigan.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But from Ireland, that grew up there, ask them how much food do they really have, and they'll often say, "We got enough food for 25 million people." That's an answer that's supplied to them. So I'm asking Mary Lou, I'm like, "What about your inputs? I mean, you need the nitrogenous fertilizers and all these other inputs and blah blah blah." And they're cutting like Nord Stream. Something happened to it magically, right? You need that natural gas. Groningen gas field in Netherlands. I was at that last March, warning that they're probably going to close it down. And now they have. They closed it about maybe roughly 4 months ago, right? That's the biggest gas field in Europe. That's very important, not just for heating, but also for Haber-Bosch process in creating nitrogenous fertilizers, right? You take the hydrogen off the natural gas, combine it with the nitrogen that we're breathing, and you got ammonia, right? So they'll make, urea, ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, all these nitrogenous products that are needed to feed the world. They started that in 1914 at Ludwigshafen, Germany, at BASF plant. I went to BASF plant twice last year or the year before. It was the year before Nord Stream got interrupted. I was at BASF the second time getting a tour, and I asked the guy, this is a 10 square kilometer plant. It's the biggest chemical company in the world. That's just one of their plants. That is exactly where they started doing Haber-Bosch process in 1914. By the way, this canal also opened in 1914. They started the Haber-Bosch process there in 1914, and they need that natural gas. So I said to him, what happens if Nord Stream is interrupted? And this is before it got interrupted, because in my paradigm, Nord Stream, there's a high chance it would be interrupted. I was watching the Nord Stream flows. There was an app where you could watch the flows, and I had it on a dedicated iPad beside me. I would just glance at the flows every hour or so, still flowing, and it went to zero. And I started messaging people, hey man, I don't know if this app's frozen or something, but the flows through Nord Stream are at zero now. And I don't know what happened. Did Russia cut it off, or is it bubbling, right? And it was bubbling, right? And so bottom line is it's gone, right? It's not going to be rebuilt anytime soon, that's for sure. You got to keep in mind, in the great game, when you're looking at this on the big picture, Europe, let's say England, the United Kingdom, have been always working very hard to keep Germany and Russia from combining forces, right? We want those guys fighting each other, because Germany's got the warm water ports and other things. If they combine forces, that's not good for the United States or the United Kingdom or anything. There's a great game going on, right? It's way beyond all this Ukraine bullshit. Everybody's focused on, the Russians speaking Crimea. You're looking at a parking lot fight. That's nothing. You're not even looking at the game, right? You're just a sucker in the big information war. It's about much bigger things. That's why I was watching Nord Stream. That's what, and Trump was like, hey, why are you getting your gas from Russia, right? And I mean, we got it, right? We don't want them getting their gas from Russia. That builds Russia and makes and puts Germany and Russia in the same sphere, right? We don't want that. But a lot of people have no idea about all this stuff. All this stuff going on in Ukraine, it's about democracy. That's bullshit. That's child play. You're just buying the information game. That has nothing to do with that. All those people being killed, they're meat puppets. And that's the sad truth, you know.
Mm.
And say a lot of these wars are right along those lines. I mean, there's the war that everybody thinks you're fighting, and then there's the real war that's being fought, and it's much higher, and it's big players. It's about energy. It's about warm water ports. It's about look what just happened in Israel, right? First of all, Bibi Netanyahu is a member of the World Economic Forum. Period. That's like saying you're a member of the Nazi Party. It's like, he's a good one. Okay, so in other words, you agree there's good Nazis? Is that what you're saying? Because there's no good member of the World Economic Forum unless they're a spy, right? And Bibi pushed the jab, which is World Economic Forum talking points. Push the jab, because they're doing a depopulation. So Bibi locked down. This country, Panama, was locked down crazy. Israel was locked down tight as well, as tight as Panama. They were super locked down. That was when I started. I've supported Israel all my life. I've supported them strong at much personal expense. And when they started saying, well, if you want to come to Israel, you got to get a jab, I'm like, all right, we're putting some distance between us at this point. That was a phase change for me. I'm like, no, that's
crazy girlfriend shit.
That's it. I mean, I'm like, okay, now I'm primed to go the next step at this point, which is anti-Israel. But I wasn't anti-Israel. I'm just like, I'm getting cold on it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a clear genocidal jab, period. And he has to be smart enough to know it. And he's openly begging Pfizer to get the jab for Israel first, openly. Now, through inventory control, he could. I'm not saying this is what happened because I do not know, but these are sophisticated people. Through inventory control, you could easily jab your enemies with death globs and give your allies,
saline,
vitamin B or something. I don't know. Give them something that makes them feel good about getting the jab. Oh, I got the jab and I feel good. It's like, yeah, they just gave you some feel good stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's not beyond them to do stuff anyway. But that's not the point. The point is, after they pushed that jab, I was like, okay, you never heard me say another supportive word about Israel. I wasn't saying anything bad about it, but that was shields up, Captain, right? And then what happened on October 7th? I was in Darien. On October 6th, the day before, the Costa Rican president and the Panamanian president were down there opening the gap more. They're tripling the buses, for instance, from about 60 per day to about 200, right? They're saying that they're going to do. And that was the day before. The next day, October 7th, we've got an attack. And how did you not know this massive attack was going to come? The best intelligence service in the world. Okay, everybody's all intimidated by Mossad and all their apparatus. They should be, because they're all infiltrated into CIA and NSA and all that stuff. I mean, quite seriously, like no kidding. You know what I mean? And so are the CCP. You get all these different meta structures that are inside, right? And that reinforce each other. Like Israel and China work very closely together. I mean, China put $1.7 billion into Haifa port, right? And so October 7th happens, and this attack is ongoing. And 7+ hours before IDF really swings into action. And some of the IDF people told me it was really 12+ hours for a lot of the areas. So that's basically more than a McDonald's shift that it took. They got Blackhawks, man. The slowest Blackhawk crew in the world can go from a cold Blackhawk to wheels up in 6 minutes. That's a slow crew. And they've got QRFs over there, right? You should be able to go wheels up in less than 4 minutes with your special operations guys and your QRF. You should be able to go in there. I've been on QRFs with the U.S. and in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, as a war correspondent, they let me go. And so, alert, pilots run out there, strap it in. Everybody strap it in. We're ready to go, man. Everybody strapped in, wheels up. You're off into action in 15 minutes. I mean, those things go 180 miles an hour, right? I mean, what part of Israel took more than 7 hours to reach? Zero. That was that's over the top. You did the death jab. You clearly attacked your own people and used the Hamas meat puppets as part of, because we all know Israel openly, and the United States and Qatar and others openly support Hamas. Openly. It's not conspiracy theory. They say it. Bibi used to say it with his mouth. Now they're the biggest criminals in the world because they just did a Gleiwitz moment. Operation Gleiwitz, that was the excuse for the Germans to attack Poland, where the Anyway, there was Germany did a false. First of all, they put their military on the border with Poland, and then they did you look up Operation Gleiwitz. You'll see that the Germans did a false flag, and then they had the cameras ready. How come such mainstream media were embedded with Hamas, right? Or were they embedded with Hamas, or was Hamas embedded with the media? Because this was an information op, right? This was a clear information op that included a lot of dead people as props, right? So that crystal clear that Israel was definitely in collusion with killing its own people to genocide Gaza. Why would they do that? They wouldn't just do that randomly, right? Because Gaza is a big money maker as well. It's a money drain, but also brings a lot of money in, right? From suckers like America, right? There's three main reasons. There's more than three, but there's three biggies that are obvious and laying right on the table, and Bibi and others talk about them openly. The energy right off Gaza, right? It's a lot of energy right off Gaza. So that's a big pork chop off their neck, right? The next one is the Ben Gurion Canal, which most people haven't heard of, but they've been talking about building the Ben Gurion Canal for many, many years. And the most efficient route for Ben Gurion Canal is right through Gaza. So that would be parallel to Suez, right? Not really parallel, but you know what I'm saying. It would be sort of a Y. And it doesn't matter. But geometry doesn't matter, other than it would be amazingly beneficial to whoever ends up controlling the Ben Gurion Canal. Why was that evergreen ship stuck in Suez a couple or so years ago? A lot of people were like, "What's going on here? Is that a dry run for something?" Everybody was suspicious. I was suspicious. It could have been. I don't know why it was. So this is theory land at this point. It could have been to set the information conditions so that when it comes time later to cleanse out Gaza, then you want to open Ben Gurion, because you'll be like, hey, the Suez.
Like, remember when that stopped the whole, yeah.
Now imagine this one stops. I was publishing way back then. Now imagine this one stops, and Suez stops, and Straits of Malacca, Hormuz, all these different places stop or are mitigated, and that's a big deal. You can help push us into global famines, right? With, in conjunction with the nitrogen, for all these different things, right? But the bottom line is, Ben Gurion Canal, the energy, and also the Indo-European corridor, which is something that Bibi was talking about only months ago. He held up a map, and some people noticed. They're like, "Hey, Gaza's not on that map, and West Bank's not on the map." And people were sending it to me. I'm like, Anyway, data point, file for later, right? So, hyperspace to October 7th, and the ethnic cleansing begins. They're clearly taking out Gaza, right? And it's interesting. It could be a coincidence, but that was the day after that attack, or the day before the attack. The president of Costa Rica and Panama were down in the Darien Gap on the edge of it at Las Blancas camp. I was there, and so they're about talking about increasing the flow of the aliens to the Darien Gap. So if I just met some Arabs coming through the other day. They're coming through every day. I asked one, "Where are you from?" And he didn't want to talk. Everybody else was like, "Oh, I'm from Venezuela. I'm from this. I'm from that." This guy was like, "Egypt." And I was like, "That guy's not Egyptian." I said, "You speak Arabic?" He's like, "Yeah." And then another guy, they spoke a little Arabic. And I wonder if he was from Gaza, actually. I don't know where he was from. And I didn't have a chance to talk with him because there was some stuff going on. We were way out in the jungle, and there was other things. But the bottom line is, there's a lot of I don't know if that starting to open the gap and advance even more had something to do. I do not know. But the bottom line is, I and some others immediately, within, I don't know, almost immediately, we're going to end up adopting Gazans, and we don't want them. You know what I mean? That's just another meta structure that is going to bring their fish fight from the fish. Some fish don't mix well in the same aquarium. These people coming through the Darien Gap, are going to end up straight over in Fort Lauderdale and Miami and New York and California, killing Jews and Christians and each other, because nobody kills more Muslims than Muslims, and nobody kills more Jews than Jews at this point. I mean, that thing on October 7th and the death jabs. Somebody close to Carolyn Glick, the famous correspondent Carolyn Glick, or is she a correspondent, or she anyway, whatever. Somebody was offering the opportunity to be interviewed by her the other day, right? I was like, why would I want to get interviewed by her? She pushed the death jab, and anybody who pushed back against that, she called anti-Semite and anti-Jew. You're losing me on that, right? There is a self-fulfilling prophecy. people like me who've defended Israel our whole life, defended Jews openly 1,000 times, right? Openly 1,000 times. And every time I come, if I point out the obvious, why are you pushing those death jabs, Israel? BB, Carolyn Glick, why are you pushing, and why are you calling everybody anti-Semite when we stand up against that, and anti-Jew? It's like you're trying to manipulate me, and I resent it. I actually resent it. And when we get to the point of resentment, that's where you turn your former allies into neutrals or even opposition. And at this point, I mean, a lot, it's very clear. And I used to tell Israelis this. I used to travel with them a lot around India and Nepal and whatnot years ago before the wars. And I would tell them, you know, one day America probably will turn on you, and they will get upset. And I'd be like, I'm just telling you, the demographic is changing at a glacial pace, and a lot of these people that are coming in, they hate Israel, right? They hate it. I am your base, like people like me, right? I am your base support in the United States, and I find a lot of the things that you do and say to other people, like it puts me off. I see the way you treat Nepalese. I see the way you treat Thai people. I see the way you treat Indians, and it puts me off. I don't like it. You talk down to them. You talk down to a lot of people. I don't like it. I am your base. I'm speaking from my heart, friend to friend. You continue that, you will end up losing a block, right? And now when we say something about the death jab, they're like, oh, you're anti-Semite, you're anti-Jew. It's like, okay, I'm not anti-Jew or anti-Semite, but I have become anti-Zionist. I am that guy now, right? It's funny, Israelis used to call me a Zionist. I'm like, exactly what's that? I had to study up on it and that sort of thing, because I always thought they should have their own homeland and that sort of thing, and big time, right? And now I'm seeing what's happening. It's becoming, look, they are allies with Chinese Communist Party. They are the West. Israel doesn't represent Jews. That's bullshit. That's information war. And you know who really argues against that the most is a lot of Orthodox Jews. I mean, they're like I know some Orthodox Jews I want to chat with. We chat pretty often, and they're kind of elders, and they're like wildly anti-Israel. I'm like, you're like radicals, man. Even with what I saw on October 7th, I'm not as radical anti-Israel as you are. You know what I mean? I just want to keep them in their place and stop manipulating Americans. Like, you know, it's like that fungus that grows on an ant. You know what I mean? I was and takes over the ant colony. It looks, Chinese do that. I was watching this thing about the Haifa Harbor a couple months ago, or a month ago. Yeah, a couple months ago. And China put $1.7 billion into Haifa Harbor. I'm studying up on that. And so here's this Chinese professor at University of Shanghai, I think, and Jewish studies, right? And behind him is all these books on Judaism and stuff. And like, this is like fungus fighting fungus, because China is very good at taking over a culture. Like this Honduran general I had a dinner with about a month and a half ago up in Honduras. He said, and he's from Chinese heritage, and he said, he goes, China is not coming to attack or militarily conquer the world. They're going to become the world. That's their goal. And you know, Chinese have told me that when I was in Hong Kong and in Taiwan. Actually, there are a lot of mainlanders in Hong Kong, of course, and they'll say things like that. They're like, we don't have to fight. We'll just slowly become that thing. And you look at, that's how they did it in Hong Kong. That's partly how they did it. They brought in 100 to 150 mainlanders into Hong Kong per day over a year. So drip, drip, drip. And they took positions in schools, police, elected officials. They became a critical mass of Hong Kong. So when I was there for the death throes in 2019 and 20, I got kicked out. They put me on the airplane and shut the door. You can see it in the news if you look online. Look up my name, Michael Yan in Hong Kong. You'll see them taking me to the airplane. And so anyway, I was a bad boy. And so I was standing up to him. And so, you know, I was there for 7 months. But nobody came to the rescue. And now they're gone, essentially gone. Taiwan. My intuitive sense, I know this is not going to be popular at all, but I'm not here to make people feel good. I'm here to be realistic. Like Ukraine, before the first shot was fired, I was like, don't do it, Ukraine. You're falling into a trap. You're a bunch of meat puppets. And there you go. And you're going to lose it. We're not going to rebuild Ukraine. Ukraine's not going to be some energy prices are too high. Our economy's collapsing. Europe's collapsing. You're dead. You are dead. They're going to take you. They're going to take what they want. The Russians are going to get it, right? I mean, that's that. Taiwan. Taiwan has thousands of their companies are on mainland China. I love Taiwan. The Taiwanese are some of my favorite people on earth. I'd take 100,000 of them. I wouldn't even make them go through the Darien Gap. I'd take their family people, low crime, high education. You know, they intermarry. So I used to tell Americans that. I'm like, look, I would be live streaming from the fighting in Hong Kong, which is obviously different than Taiwan. And I mean, Taiwan, there's Mandarin speakers, different culture. Hong Kong was mostly it's different culture. They even look different. But anyway, I'd be out in the fighting, live streaming, and I would say to American men, young guys, I mean, look at these hot women, man. They're highly educated. They're out here fighting at midnight. They're throwing bricks at communists. Get over here and marry these women. You know what I'm saying? I mean, who doesn't want a woman that'll throw bricks at communists at midnight? You know, throwing Molotovs at the police and stuff. I'm like, these are like university girls. Look at how fit they are
10 out
and
of
how
10.
aggressive they are, man. They'll make good babies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All the
Yeah.
feminists are like, oh, we're just baby makers. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I got no use for a woman that can't shoot a gun, right? It's like, and it's my heritage, man. Scott Irish. And it's like, and so, but the bottom line is it's not anti-Chinese. There are a lot, actually, you know, they're a benefit to the United States. But let's get back to the realism of Taiwan. I'm not sure how Taiwan can make it through this unless they quickly develop nuclear weapons or something. But I mean, as a defensive strat, but they're still going to just take you. They're slowly becoming you. The only way to do, you're never going to win this on defense. You will not win this on defense. Just like the United States, getting your little AR-15, your little, you know, got a bunch of ammunition and MRAs, you're not going to win. You're playing defense. You have to play offense, right? And when I say offense, obviously Taiwan is not going to like invade mainland China, but they need to play every other form of offense. I was just up with Masako Ganaha in Belize. We talked with the Taiwanese ambassador at their embassy, right? Talked for a long time, and because Belize still has relations with Taiwan. So then we went over to Guatemala, and the Taiwanese actually have been, and then we went to Honduras and El Salvador. The Taiwanese have lost their footing in El Salvador and in Honduras. They still have embassies in Taiwan and in Belize and in Guatemala, but they're slowly being strangled down. They're being crunched down. Even though like the Hondurans, they seem to really like Taiwanese, but they're very suspicious of mainland Chinese. But the mainland Chinese are coming with buckets of money and buckets of information war, right? Everybody likes Taiwanese, man, except for mainland Chinese. Taiwanese are, you know, I spent a lot of time in Asia, you know, a lot of time in Japan and Thailand and just all over the place. But when you go to Taiwan, if you've been around Japan much and Thailand much, you go to Taiwan, only people that have been in all three of these places will really get what I'm saying, I think. But when you're in Taiwan, it feels like Taiwanese are like a mixture of Thai culture and a mixture, not that they are, but in their behaviors, and a mixture of Japanese, which they are on some levels culturally, and then some other thing, 1/3 Chinese. And there's this special blend of people. They're like very Thai Japanese, you know what I mean? High level of honesty and a high level of like right on time and stuff like that. But they're like, don't worry, be happy, like Thais are. I love Thais. I love Japanese. But together, you mix those together, and then you mix the Chinese thing together, and you got this like special culture. It's quite nice, actually. Like if I had a bunch of Taiwanese neighbors move in, if they were authentic, what we call sweet potatoes, you know, Taiwan is shaped like a sweet potato.
I didn't know that.
You know, it's shaped like a sweet potato. Yeah. So the Taiwanese who have been there for more than 400 years ago, the old people, young Taiwanese won't even know what I'm talking about usually, but the older ones are like 70 or 80. They know sweet potato means Taiwanese have been there for like 400 years, right? You're descendant from that culture. The taros, you know, a taro is shaped just like a sweet potato. A taro and a sweet potato have the same shape, which is the shape of Taiwan, right? And so the ones who came after World War II with the big civil war in China, those who moved over, they call those taros because they're more bitter, they're like rough. rough around the edges, like, hey, this is our land, you know. And the Taiwanese are like, we've been here for 450 years. You know what I mean? Who are you people? You're running. We took you in, and now you're trying to take this place over and stuff. So those are the sweet potatoes and the taros. The taros came later. Now they get along pretty good, but in any case, so what I'm saying is, if Taiwanese moved in as my neighbor, if they were like sweet potato types, I'd be like, oh, great, and but if it's like mainland Chinese, I'm going to be suspicious. I mean, they might be great people, but it's going to take a long time to suss that through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not going to get any free passes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we're being invaded by mainland China, right? Actually, Iris Chong, Rape of Nanjing, the author, her father was a physicist and her mother was a molecular biologist, and they met in Taiwan, but they were mainlanders. They were mainland Chinese. So they moved to the United States. Iris Chong, the so-called expert on Nanjing, she's bullshit. She doesn't even speak Mandarin. She never lived in China. She's never went to Japan researching her book. I know a lot about it. I've got her autopsy right here on this computer. You know what I mean? I know this. I have studied this in such detail in so many countries, the information war that China is doing against Japan and the United States and other enemies like Taiwan, and other countries too that are not necessarily enemies, but people they want to influence and eventually become, like Thailand, not Taiwan, but Thailand and Taiwan as well, and Philippines. That's the railroad. If you hear it, you hear it.
Mm-hmm.
There goes the train.
Yeah.
So that's the Panama Canal Railway right there, the famous one.
Mm.
Let's see if I can lift this up without damaging something. Oh man,
No, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, that's the famous train that opened up before the canal, so it's still along the same path. So a lot of the Chinese that are here actually came to build that.
Okay.
So this isn't the gold rush that we had in California.
Yeah,
and people you could either like go across the hard way and fight engines all the way, or you could go around, around South America. So that's when they started doing it by donkeys and stuff, and then they got the railway. They had a path, right? So this would have been the path right through, and then they built a railway on it. Yeah, there used to be robbers out here, man. It was totally, the gangsters out here were killing. The guy that was sent in to deal with the gangsters during the railway time, what he did was he started hanging out in bars because he's like, the gangsters will be spending their money in the bars. And he hung out in the bars with the spies for, I've forgotten how long. And he just basically got the names of, figured out who all was doing it, because gangsters, they're stupid, man. They're doing their gangster stuff, and then they're going out and getting drunk, and they're talking trash, and he's writing their names down. And then one day, the night of the long knives, man, went out and smoked a ton of them and smoked them. No, captured them and killed them and hanged them and everything else, man. And that ended a lot of that.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. He went to the bars and stuff, and he did it. They were loose lips sink ships. Loose lips, get your neck put in a noose, and smoked him. I've forgotten his name. There's a great book on that called Path Between the Seas, though. The Path Between the Seas is about the building of the canal. Brother, I gotta go.
Yeah, you're good.
I gotta take off. I'm looking at some message traffic coming in.
You're quite all right.
I'm sorry, I rambled.
No, no, dude, I don't give a shit. I told you beforehand, 10 minutes, 10 hours, whatever you want. I don't care.
I got a lot of stuff to do for the next 2 weeks, but when I'm finished with that, I'll have a lot to talk about.
Well, shoot me a message when you're ready, and we'll do another one. And
hey, dude, I'm gonna send you this video, man. You gotta watch this. You can't share it until a few more weeks, but
all right,
you'll see. Some stuff. I think you'll find it interesting.
All right. Well, yeah, dude. Like I said earlier, man. Whenever you gotta go, you just tell me you gotta go. I know.
Yeah, I gotta punch out.
Dude, you're quite. Hey, dude, go. You're doing.
But I got no clothes, man. I'm walking out dressed like the way I normally dress in the jungle.
I don't know. All right, that looks like a cozy shirt. I don't dislike it at all. It looks like a cozy fucking shirt, dude.
Feels good to me.
Hell yeah.
But it's dirty, man. It stinks. All my clothes are dirty, so I'm just wearing the least dirty clothes that are left.
But that's the beauty of the podcast. Is no one knows it smells. No one knows. That's the beauty. That's true. Yeah,
just imagine a shirt that's been in the jungle and not washed.
We'll see. Well, now you're breaking the illusion. You gotta no one knows it smells. You gotta that's half the fun. Yo, I'll let you go. Shoot me a message when we'll schedule the next one, and Guys, please go into the description. Please go follow him on Twitter. And Mr. Jan, God bless and keep doing the Lord's work, please.
Thank you, sir. I'll
Thank
be
you, sir.
back but I'll be in communication.
All
I'll
right.
be in communication daily. I just can't necessarily come on
Yeah, I
because
got you.
of
I got
stuff I'm
you.
going to be
I
doing.
got you. Hey, get after it, dude. Get after it. Thank you so
All right,
much.
man.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you for